Thank you so much for logging in. Thanks for joining us, and thanks to our esteemed panel, who I shall introduce shortly. But just to set the scene, the Fintech Influencers is a group that we set up some years ago alongside the Realization Group over here at Harrington Starr to help drive growth and innovation in global fintech. Today we're joined by London, New York, and California, all over the world, to discuss exactly what's happening in these crazy times that we're living in at the moment. We're seeing a ever-changing scene at the moment, and one of the core things that I've seen from talking to people over the last 115 days, however long it is the growing importance and significance of marketing in a world where we can't see each other as much and be physically present. Some companies have absolutely nailed the opportunity to make their brand stand out, and I'm so pleased that we've got some genuine experts from all sorts of different backgrounds, from B2B to B2C, from startup or scale up through to established enterprise player, to the agency side with Colin. And it's a conversation that I keep on hearing about, a conversation which we keep on listening to, and we thought there'd be real value in sharing with all of you some of the secrets that have made these businesses genuinely stand out, and some of the things that you can take into your business and help drive us through not only the pandemic as we go through now, but the sort of opportunity that I think arises over the course of the next 12 months to really stand out. I want to ask the panel to introduce yourselves. Debbie, would you be so kind as to give us a short bit of background? Oh, you're on mute, I believe.
Thank you, Toby, and it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm Debbie Brown. I'm Global VP of Marketing for Broadridge. For those of you who don't know who we are, we're a global fintech company headquartered out of the United States, and we're about 4 billion in revenues. And I'm actually based here in the US as well. I have a global team, mostly between London and New York, and now on the West Coast as well. So just a bit by way of background on me, I grew up in the telco industry. I started life in the in-house agency of a very large telecoms company, and worked my way up the ranks, and have worked in fintech for many, many years. Held various roles at Thomson Reuters, Yahoo Search Marketing, a large global payments company, and most recently now Broadridge. So very happy to be here and share some insights with you.
Thanks so much for joining us. Emmy, over to you.
Thank you, Toby, and I'm also delighted to be here. So my name is Emmy Grandström. I work for a company called SteelEye, and we've been around for about 3 years. So I represent the startup part of this panel. SteelEye is a fintech company, but more specifically a regulatory technology company. So what we do is we help banks, financial institutions, asset managers to normalize, centralize their data, and in turn meet a range of regulatory obligations. I've worked in the RegTech space for about 6 years, but before that I actually started my career in telecommunications as well. Now that was also a startup. I've only worked for small companies, and now I'm here at SteelEye. I've been here for about a year and a couple of months.
And doing a stunning job with it as well. Thanks for sharing that. Jared, we have you over in New York. Would you like to tell us a bit about yourself, please?
Certainly. So my name is Jared, and I am representing the business to consumer.
You can tell you're in New York with that beep. There it is.
Exactly. Got all the sounds of the city. I'm representing the business to consumer aspect of fintech marketing. I currently manage lifecycle and retention marketing for Acorns, which is an online investing app designed to help new investors build their wealth by investing their spare change. My background has always been in financial services marketing, with stops at American Express and PayPal before my current role, and looking forward to a great discussion today.
Incredible. Well, they've been fantastic in the preps so far, so I'm looking forward to even more to come. And last but by no means least, the legend is Colin Slight. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Toby. Yes, and I'm also delighted to be here, of course. So I'm Colin Slight, and I'm co-founder of the Realization Group, and we are a full-service marketing agency specializing 100% in financial markets. and we've been around 18 years. I founded the company with the other co-founder, Melanie Budden, in 2002. So we've been around a fair while and doing it a long time. That's probably why I'm probably the oldest person here.
Adding value since 2002 and for a couple of years beforehand.
I've been doing realization groups since 2000. I've tried you for a lot longer than that.
You don't look old enough, Colin. You don't look old enough. Listen, it's as I say, this is a fascinating topic, and I think it's so important because we're seeing genuine value and probably the light shone on marketing departments more than ever before. With that comes an incredible amount of noise, and the whole theme of this is maximising your marketing to stand out above the noise that we're hearing at the moment. So we're going to talk a little bit to our panelists, and then there's also going to be plenty of time for people to ask Q&A. So please don't be shy with your questions. The panel told me they're not scared to answer anything and ready to come to answer all your needs. So please do ask those questions in between it. But we're going to start off just talking about a couple of bits and pieces of the focus on this rising above the noise. Debbie, I'm going to start with you, if I may. COVID's obviously created a different playing field altogether. Tell us a little bit about how you have adapted your marketing strategy to do just that, to stand out from the crowd. Oh, you're muted again.
You're muted again, Debbie.
I must stop doing that. I think there's really no question that, firms are producing a hell of a lot more content right now, and we're no exception. I think that, and this was an issue even before COVID hit us, but of course now we're dealing with this double whammy of a lot more content being generated, and all of that being sort of funneled through this prism of just a few crowded digital channels. So I would say, we've been going back to basics and looking at how we can really try and differentiate our message in this really crowded, noisy environment. And so we've been, looking at things like really asking ourselves some hard questions about, is my message even still relevant right now? Things are changing on a regional level, even on a local level. So what might have been appropriate, 6 months ago is now no longer relevant, and certainly not in some markets. So I think that's a very real thing for us right now. I think the other piece of it is we are looking very hard at our human emotional elements of our brand, and where we can communicate our purpose more and bring that to the fore. I think, that's something that a lot of brands are doing right now. They're really looking at the human side, at the emotional side of their brand, and keeping the message simple. I mean, I think, in a very crowded market, soundbite marketing is to be avoided. And I mean, just looking at the stats, I was reading an interesting survey by WPP, and I mean, they surveyed a lot of people, and 93% of them said that brands should be stepping up and helping right now. And I think that's where, we need to be paying attention. So most importantly, we're doing a lot more, my team are doing a lot more research. We're doing a lot of active listening. We're trying to find more venues where we can hear from clients, and we're adapting our messaging on the fly, because this is a very real-time environment and our customers' needs are changing. So I think the listening, the research is very key.
That tone of voice seems really important at the moment, doesn't it? And having that empathy, right? Emmy, I know that you have things to say on this, and we're using the hands up button nicely. So please follow up.
I was just going to say that I love talking to Debbie and hearing her experiences, because coming from a startup world, I often wish I had more time to do exactly what you've just described. But from my perspective, what I feel like happened in March when we all went into lockdown was, right, we can't go out and meet people anymore. Marketing is the solution to everything. Do all of these 1 billion things, and so the big challenge was, first of all, let's focus on what we can do. But I think what we focus on at SteelEye was trying to come up with creative ways of doing things. So if everyone's doing a webinar, how, what can we do that's different from that? How do we engage with our audience and pique their interest in a way that just stands out a bit more? Which has been an interesting journey, and we'll see how it's gone. But it's just a different perspective from a startup.
Yeah, absolutely. That messaging, I think, is there's an interesting piece, and I know you've been really prevalent in this about adding value. Debbie, you mentioned there about how listening to people and adding that value to your audience, and I've seen incredible examples all over the world of people doing that, about how it's almost that sort of sense of karma about what people can do from it. Jared, how does that come across in the B2C world? Is that something you're seeing as well?
Absolutely. I think especially in these times, being relevant and being understanding, of our customer situations is really important. A lot of people have lost their jobs or had things that have impacted their ability to invest. So from our perspective, being cognizant of that there may be people who want to invest but can't. And if we're pushing them to invest, we're not only not going to get the outcome that we want, or we're going to alienate that customer because we're very clearly projecting that we don't understand their situation. So I think the more sort of aware and cognizant that you can be of your customer's circumstances, the more effective you'll be at breaking through.
Yeah, I think that's the sort of conscious effort not to oversell at the moment has been a real feature, and we'll come on to that with you in a minute, Colin, as well. Emmy, I just want to talk a little bit about the sort of startup versus enterprise world. You're competing there in a crowded market anyway, and having to shout loud. I think one of the things that SteelEye have definitely done is shout pretty loud all the way through this process. Tell us a little bit about how you've done that and some of the wins that you've seen from that process.
Absolutely. I think one of the approaches I've always taken to marketing startups is don't act like a startup. Don't pretend you are a 20-year-old company with the biggest budget in the world and make your plan based on that. You have to adjust it because you have smaller budgets, you have smaller teams, but come up with an ambitious plan and try to present yourself as like you've been around for 20 years. So that's certainly what I've always done with planning. And then if you look at recruiting for marketing roles, for example, I think from that perspective, one of the most important things you can do if you're working for a startup is to hire people who are all-rounders.
Yeah. So
only recently was I able to hire someone into my team, and that's the world of startups. But before then, everything that you're producing from a marketing perspective is coming out of you, and that's anything from creating brochures in Illustrator and doing videos in PowerPoint and organizing and hosting events, and you do everything, which makes it really fun. But my main thing would be don't act like a startup. Think you're an Nasdaq and make your plan like that, and then try to make that fit with your budget and your resource. And
get that bark louder than the bite. I like it. And that's certainly something you've been doing. I think it's phenomenal what you guys have done. And I've said that a few times over the last few months. Colin, look, you've represented a number of startups for many years and helped them get their messaging and their noise levels up. What do you see as some of the things there that you've seen work really well in that space?
Well, clearly, everything that Emmy said there resonates, which is, it's always been about punch above your weight, look bigger than you are, don't act like a startup, be mature. It's like the fundamentals of what we're doing have not changed. We live in the commercial world. We live in the capitalist world. Everybody's got to buy and sell from each other in order to keep the wheels of commerce turning. Okay, what we do as marketers, we oil the wheels of commerce. We act as facilitators in that process between buyers and sellers. And most of what we're about it's all about trust. If you are going to buy something from somebody, you've got to trust them. And if you've got a startup and you act like a startup, you act like a small company, and you act like you're a little bit kind of arrogant because you've got great technology and you think people should just buy it because it's great. Where's the trust in that?
Yeah.
It's So what we've got to do as marketers is we've got to figure out, how do we get our prospective clients to trust us? And it manifests itself in a variety of different ways, depending on whether you're an established organization or whether you're a startup. They've got different challenges. An established organization has got to avoid acting like they have a right to own the market just because they're big and they've been around a while. You've still got to work on that trust. You've still got to work on that relationship building. A startup has not got to act as if they have a right to enter and dominate the market just because they've got some great tech with better features and functionality. How do we know how to trust people? So it's all about trust, fundamentally.
Showing that authority, showing that authenticity. Absolutely.
But you would do trust in different ways depending on the circumstances we're in. Now, we're in different circumstances now than we were back in February. So we've just got to adopt different behaviours in order to maintain that trust. And this is where, what Debbie says resonates, and Jared, we've got to bring more humanity to the emotional experience of people who are dealing with us, because we've got to be cognizant of the fact that there are people out there who are struggling.
Yeah.
There are people out there who are, working at home, but they don't want to work at home. And there's lots of people who are saying like, well, it's great working at home, but then for other people it's not. And you've got to try and look at the world through the eyes of a whole bunch of different people and shape your messaging accordingly. What I find amazing is how the likes of Jared and Debbie and Emmy and everybody else who's trying to do this marketing job out there have moved quickly to shape our messaging and to shape our approaches. That's what I like about the commercial world. We adapt, we pivot, and I see it happening out there.
Adapt, improvise, overcome. Absolutely.
It's very, very, what's the word I'm looking for? It's inspirational sometimes to see how quickly we move and we reshape the way we address our customers and our markets.
Yeah, no, I agree. Jared, I know, and Emmy, I know you both got your hands up. I'll start with you, Jared, and allow you to come back in, Emmy, as well.
Yeah, I think the one thing I was going to add, and having worked at some really large companies like American Express and PayPal, and now being at Acorns, which is a smaller company, the biggest advantage you have as a startup is the ability to move quickly. And I think about how long it took to get things done when I worked at larger companies, all the processes, all the approvals, all the alignment, just to get an idea to market. Whereas as a startup, if you have an idea, you can put it out there in a couple weeks. So really the biggest advantage that a startup has over some of the incumbents is the ability to try things quickly, fail fast, and then move on to the next idea. And you can run, a huge number more experiments and tests than a large company could, just because you don't have that large infrastructure to work through.
That agility is important, isn't it? Emmy, do you want to follow that up?
Yeah, I think that's certainly true. And practically you also have less eyes on you because your audience isn't as big yet as the enterprise companies that have been around for 20 years. And for that reason, you can absolutely experiment more and you're finding your voice. I just wanted to comment on one thing I find interesting, and I actually draw a lot upon the B2C market when I'm thinking about our approach. Because when I look at some of the, certainly in our space, some of the incumbents that have been around for 20 years, I often find that, they're kind of, they have websites that look like they haven't been updated for 10 years. They're not user friendly. And like to your point, Jared, for a company that's been around for a very long time that has a huge amount of messaging, to do a project like upgrading a website is a massive task. Whereas as a startup, you're constantly creating things from scratch, which means you can kind of have the newest technologies available, which really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And Debbie, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think we are working as much more agile teams, and we're bringing products to market in a really fast turnaround time now, and we're using sort of active listening, working with clients, rolling things out, stopping, evolving very, very quickly, much more quickly than maybe we would have done before, because we're trying to solve for the now. And as I said before, client needs are changing. But I think what I would say is that in the fintech world, it's not just now about world-class software technology. You've got to be able to deliver high-quality services and be able to do that at scale. And I think that's, something that we really have found our clients value. And so, earning client confidence every day, being able to provide services at scale, as well as world-leading technology. The technology is almost table stakes at this point. Yeah,
I think that's really interesting. I also want to sort of touch on something that you mentioned there, Emmy, as well, about the sort of what we can learn from the B2C world in the B2B marketplace. Jared, you've been leading the way in that. Tell us a little bit about where you feel that some of the sort of standout elements of B2C sit and what maybe the B2B world can learn from it, and vice versa.
Yeah, so I'd say, first and foremost, I definitely sympathize with the challenges that exist in the B2B space. One thing in the B2C space that we have often is the luxury of much richer customer data, and that really allows us to be both timely and relevant and personalized in our communications to our customers. I think as a recipient of a fair amount of B2B marketing, whether that's folks guessing my corporate email address or LinkedIn messaging, I think my thought from those experiences is to try to leverage the information that you have, whether that's my title in my LinkedIn profile, my experience, to make sure that your message is actually going to make sense. I get a lot of offers for services and products that don't even really line up with my role and are things that I wouldn't even be the decision maker on. So I think the best advice I can give, while acknowledging the challenges that exist with B2B marketing, is to take advantage of the data that you are able to pull in and run some tests with being a little bit more personalized and a little bit more focused when you target customers for your product or service.
I think that targeting is one of the great strengths of the B2C world. We see it time and time again. There's great examples that Tesco Clubcard through to Amazon through to all of these areas that do it really, really well. What about you guys? What do you see as something that Debbie, I'm going to throw it over to you. What do you see as things that we can take and improve from in the B2B world from those elements of B2C?
Well, I certainly agree with Jared. I think now's the time to be bold, try something different. And this year is going to be a different year. 2020 is going to go down as being the year where we didn't have a playbook. Our analytics are questionable now because they're based upon historical data and being able to use multiple channels in our marketing strategy, which we've had to pivot around. So I would say be bold. I think that, we got an opportunity to try some different things. Certainly need to be creative at a time like this. And now's not the time to be pulling back from marketing. I think it's do more. I would argue that in the B2B world, we have been segmenting and targeting for eons. And, certainly an account-based marketing approach is a highly targeted, segmented marketing strategy, and we do and are doing a lot more on that front. And I think that's an area where, in this environment, you have to get even smarter around.
I mean, you mentioned something a little bit earlier on that's just sort of played in my head a little bit there about the sort of let's throw everything over to marketing, and how that's been the answer for so many businesses, and I hear it time and time again. It's always been sales and marketing, hasn't it? And I think there's probably been a little bit of additional heat on the sales side of it. Do you think now it's sort of turning to marketing and sales, and marketing having that responsibility to drive sales? And is there a change there?
I think there was a definite initial reaction of, our sales guys can't be out there, pounding the pavements. So we need to just, marketing will have the solution and they'll solve all the problems, which obviously that's an impossibility. But I think the main thing is we can't go, I think that's driven from this, again, we had this conversation the other day, this idea that, that face-to-face meeting and the conference is still so important. But as we discussed, face-to-face events are actually arguably kind of losing a little bit of their weight. And I think firms that found themselves in March going, right, we need to start off a digital marketing program now, because they didn't have any before, they will have been in trouble, because realistically firms should have had sophisticated digital marketing plans in place even before then, as part of their ongoing marketing efforts. So from our perspective, there was definitely a lot more input from the wider team and from the sales guys, which I always love, in terms of, you know, how about we do a lunch and learn? So we invite our target customers to one-on-one sessions with our experts, and we order them a delivery or an Uber Eats. You know, just again, giving them a different kind of experience. So lots of really exciting things like this. We also did an Easter reg hunt on our website. So we did with regulations.
I love that.
We hid, 20-something little Easter eggs across our site. And when you found it and you clicked on it, it opened up a regulatory definition. And if you were the first person to share that page on social media, you won a £10 Amazon voucher or something similar. So definitely been a great, period and a time to experiment. But I think from our perspective, because we'd already invested quite a lot in setting up our digital channels, and we've always used social media heavily, it wasn't like we at that point had to make a huge amount of changes. It was just an opportunity to do more and do it and try new fun things, I'd say.
Fantastic. Jared, I can see you waving your hand. Let's bring you back in.
Yeah, no, I was just smiling when Emmy was talking, because in the B2C world, the expectation is marketing will solve all of our problems as well. So it certainly cuts across industries. And I think she really hit on some good points. And a lot of it, I think, comes down to coordination, whether it's marketing and sales in the B2B world, or marketing, in my case, product in the B2C world, that you're really coordinating your approaches together so that it makes sense to the customer, and particularly just sharing insights. I learn a lot of things from talking to my product partners that I wouldn't otherwise find out. But I think where places can run into trouble is when the attitude is like, well, marketing needs to drive, whether it's a bunch of leads in the B2B world so the sales team can close them, or I expect marketing to drive, in my world, all the relevant conversions that I need. And really, the more those functions work together, whether it's sharing messaging approaches and have shared goals, the more successful outcomes you can produce.
Yeah, absolutely. Emmy, you touched on something there before about the end of the need for face-to-face marketing. There's been one of the things I've heard more than anything else has been how people are missing the trade shows and those face-to-face events. And there's been there's potentially an argument to say the trade show is dead, long live the webinar. There's a temptation to say face-to-face event marketing is dead. We're going to digital meetups. Colin, this is your sweet spot, I know that. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts there.
Well, I can't imagine the circumstances that would arise where face-to-face would ever become irrelevant, particularly in B2B sales, but just in society generally. Human beings are social animals. They crave contact with other human beings. They want to be out there socializing. I'm getting just so much more and more of this now coming in from the field, which is like, we are desperate to get out there. We want to engage with the rest of the world again. We want to be having the cups of coffee, the chats, and all this kind of stuff. And once again, when it comes down to you're putting messages out there digitally, and people are consuming those messages, but the passive consumption of content when you're sitting at home is a deeply unsatisfactory experience when you're a human being. Think about it like when you go to a movie, you watch the movie and it's great and you come out. You go on your own, you come out, you haven't got anybody there to go like, what did you think of that? Was it all right? What was the best bit? Would you recommend it to your friend? It's a social thing. Part of going to a movie on your own, you can enjoy it. But when you come out, you can't talk about it to somebody. How does it feel? It doesn't feel, it actually feels quite frustrating in many respects. So you're sitting and there's a passive consumption of content going on because you can't get out there. And you think about it and it kicks off a thought process and you want to speak to a colleague, or you want to go to the guy who was sitting next to you and you come out and you go, what do you think of that? Was that good? Was it rubbish? Right? Was it meaningful? So you want to be able to socialize that. The content that you consume, you need to be able to socialize that with somebody in order to be able to validate it in your own mind, because it might resonate with you. But what you want to do is go and talk to somebody who you know, who you trust, and share that. Say, what do you think? Am I getting this right? Am I getting this wrong? You can't take social out of it. What we can do, and social will come back, might not come back in the same form, but they'll come back in some capacity. So how do we get around that in these circumstances? And this is where I like what Emmy said. Right? So you've got the passive consumption of content, and you've got that, and you want to socialize it somehow. So what we've got to do is we've got to create these safe areas in digital where you can actually share that experience of content, and ask people who are in your line of work, who are also interested in that, what their thoughts are. And you get this already out in the non-commercial world with, you know, discussion forums and chat rooms and stuff like that, where people kick ideas around and go, what did you think of this? What did you think of that? So if we can try and create that experience of being able to, amongst your peer group in any part of the fintech or the financial markets world, create those forums where we can share those ideas. You know, when somebody's looking to choose a product, there's this thought that they all go out there and do hours and hours and hours of research, and look at the blogs and the articles and all that kind of stuff, and research websites and all that. And they don't. Right? What they do is they glance at it, they hunt around, they pick up sound bites, they get a feeling for something, and then what they want to do is go and talk to one of their mates and go, what do you reckon? Have you used this before? Because I trust you, because I know you, I've known you for years. Give me your opinion. So can we create those forums where you can get peer-to-peer communications, the kinds of things where you get at trade shows, in the networking afterwards, at the meetups, all that stuff? Of course we can, because it happens outside in the non-commercial world. So we've just got to move towards that. And so if what we end up with is a hybrid of the face-to-face experience that you get at a trade show, but you can digitize it somehow, then we'll have an improved experience for everybody, because you're getting the best of everything. But if I'm sitting there and I'm struggling to make a decision, I just want to go and talk to somebody who is my equivalent persona in another firm and go, have you used this before? What do you think of it? What was your experience? Tell me. And in the B2C world, you know, you get attempts to do this by giving things star ratings. Right? So you can see something's got 5 stars, but everybody quickly lost confidence in that, because 5 stars all the time is always too good to be true. So you get people artificially giving themselves 4.5 stars because it seemed more credible, right? So it's a case of, we can do all our research, but how do we find out the truth? And we find out the truth by talking to people.
Yeah.
We've got
Debbie,
it's us to do it, and we can do it because we're all clever people, right? We just figure out different ways of marketing stuff and and recreating that experience, and it will happen.
Debbie, do you agree? Do you see the trade show thriving and the events continuing to press on, or is it expensive? And
I don't.
You're in a different camp.
I have to say, I'm in a different camp. I really don't think that the trade show industry, as it is today, is going to survive in its current form. I think, you know, the industry associations that we work with provide a very valuable role in connecting the industry, and I think they need to find a new and different way to do that. I don't think, certainly speaking personally, and I know a lot of the clients I talk to, nobody's really ready to go and stand in a line with for the buffet with another 1,000 people right now. And I just can't see that model coming back. I also think that, you know, it's an old model. It needs to be rethinking. And I just think it's short-sighted for a lot of these industry conference firms to just sort of take the model they have and try and replicate it in a virtual environment. I just honestly don't think that works. I think they need to rethink it completely and find smaller venues, smaller, more intimate, personal, virtual ways to connect people in a meaningful way where they can have the conversations that Colin talks about. I mean, our sales team are the same. We're exactly the same. We need to be able to have valuable, rich conversations with clients, and we need to find ways to create those experiences. But I honestly think the industry trade show model as it is not going to survive in its current form.
I think the thing I've been hearing the most about it has been about how you replace not necessarily the trade show itself, but the networking aspect of it afterwards, and that's invariably the bar after the show itself. And I think that's the piece which people are really yearning to replace. How does that hapen?
Well, Toby, I just want to build on that. Debbie, I actually agree with you. I think the trade show in its current format it's over. It's game over. I don't think, I'm not for 1 minute thinking that we're just going to go back to the way it was. It's just a case of how can we, I think they've got to reinvent themselves because their model's broken now. And I'm just interested in what that's going to look like when we come out the other end of it. So the successful ones will find a different model and they'll be able to reinvent their proposition in a way that makes it more relevant and easier to consume in the new world. And some of the others who are not capable of reinventing themselves will die. I agree with you.
Emmy, there's a question that's come in here that I want to throw over to you, which says, what can startups do differently in terms of marketing strategy to stand out? So how can they differentiate themselves? So I know we spoke about this a little bit more, and I think you guys have beforehand, but I know you guys have specifically worked really hard to do so many different things, from regs and eggs to everything. But give us a little view of some of the things that the specifics of what you've done to add value during this time.
I think that's a really, really interesting question, and there's certainly not a simple answer. I think when you're working in a small marketing team, or you are the marketing team, you can feel like you're all catching up and you're always just doing. And when you're just doing things, there's very little time to plan and think and reflect and improve. And that's something a feeling I get quite a lot. But I think the crucial thing in a startup is you have to be resourceful. And you have to look at the other people in your team and be able to draw inspiration and help from them. Now, that's the thing at SteelEye is and what's made SteelEye get to where we are today. And the reason we've done some interesting campaigns, it's because they're not ideas that I'm sitting there coming up with myself. It is my CEO, Matt Smith, who says, Emmy, wouldn't it be cool if we do this? It is, Helen Beavis coming to me and saying, I've had a great idea. It's the sales guys.
Knowing both of them, I imagine you get a hell of a lot of that as well.
A lot of those, and they're great. Sometimes you have to take a deep breath and go, right now. But that's what sets you aside. It's being open to those ideas, even when you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, because there is a lot to do. But then breaking them down and thinking about how do we execute that in a high quality, professional way that doesn't look rushed, because if we're going to do things, we need to do them to the same level and the same standard as bigger companies.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. Jared, there's one here that looks like it's got you written all over it. It says, how can you gain advantage with analytics and track the moments that matter?
Definitely a very good question. The short answer, I would say, is have a really good data engineering team. I think it's something. It's especially if you're in a startup position where you have to be a little scrappy. I think it's prioritizing the right data and the right information. And I definitely agree that analytics are very valuable, but I think Debbie raised the point that they are in some cases a little bit overrated. At the end, you do have actual people on the other end of these things, and the more I think you understand what your customers are looking for and their concerns and their behaviors from more general customer research, the more you can inform which analytics to prioritize, because there is a vast ocean of data and indicators out there, and the most successful companies are the ones who know which indicators and data are actually useful versus what's really just information that you can process for until the cows come home, but it won't make a big difference because it just doesn't translate in terms of being relevant to the actual end user.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that sort of whole journey is a fascinating one to follow. One that's come in here, which is how do you find the right balance between how to communicate with your audience and be authentic to your brand and not seem tone deaf to all the things that are happening in the world at the moment? Debbie, I think that's probably in line with some of the things you were saying at the start. Do you want to share some thoughts on that? How do you find the balance between how to communicate with your audience and be authentic to your brand and not seem tone deaf to all the things that are happening in the world at the moment?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think, that comes with going back to what I sort of said before about back to basics. I think certainly we are being very mindful about the messages that we're putting out into the marketplace right now. I think, it's a case of every single thing needs to be looked at in the broader context of what you're trying to say as an organization. And, certainly in a big company like ours, where there's a lot of marketing messaging going out there, we're certainly trying to streamline what we're doing so that we are not just owning the narrative around the important issues, but making sure that we're being very consistent to our brand message and brand purpose. And we don't want that to be clouded right now. We're also being very careful, and I would, say as a consideration for people watching, be careful about content syndication, ad retargeting at a time like this, where you want to be able to control your message and you want to be able to be sure that where your brand shows up, it's showing up in the right places, and not to take risks with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Emmy, you're nodding there, and I'm going to come to you with another question in a second. But do you have thoughts on that as well?
I was just going to agree. I think that's exactly right. Especially in a situation like we are right now, when there's a lot of hardship, you have to be very careful with what you're saying and how you're saying it, and just be respectful generally.
Absolutely. There's another one which comes into the startup world here, which is and Jared, this sort of covers you as well, with what's the most efficient way to pull. We've heard there about data and data teams, etc., but what's the most efficient way to pull data and create meaningful insights for the data, especially for a startup? And how do you automate that process? Is that something which you're looking at, Emmy?
Absolutely. I think the balance between doing planning and also reflecting is a very difficult one when you have a small team. I think marketing tools are the most important thing there. Use a CRM system, a content management system, marketing automation system that communicates, that pull all of that data in together, that pulls in your social media information and creates dashboards that you don't have to sit and pull data from 3 different systems. There are tools that do it. If it's only a couple of you in the team, you can't be spending weeks and weeks analyzing data. There's just not enough time for that. So that's where you really invest in the best tools in the market and make sure you set it up right from the start, so that when it comes to your weekly review, your monthly review, arguably you should be looking at your data ongoing because it's real time. But when you sit down and properly do those sessions, you have to spend little time on admin and pulling it together, and you can spend the most of the time looking at the data and analyzing the results.
And Jared, you've waved your hand there as well. Your specialist subject, and you come.
I think the one thing I was just going to add is the importance of asking the right questions, and I think that is always a challenge for a startup. I think you're looking for some nuggets within the data that will really help you break through, but the reality is a lot of it starts with asking the right questions, and those questions can only come from talking to customers, survey research, really just understanding your user, so that you can then use your database tools to answer the right questions. And I think earlier in my career, I had this mindset, the data's all there, you just need to run some queries against it, and the answer will turn up. But what I've found as I've gotten more experience is the tools are there for the purposes of analyzing the data. But if you aren't feeding the right questions into it, you're just not going to get very much out of it overall.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got a question that's come in from Rob Crabtree here, and Colin, I'm going to throw this your way. We work in what feels like a niche within a niche. Traditional segmented marketing has fallen flat on LinkedIn a number of times. With knocking on doors or setting up meetings out the question for now, are there lesser known channels or platforms you'd suggest in trying to reach out to our target personas?
Well, I'm not so sure about that one because, you know, in a B2B environment that we operate in, LinkedIn is pretty much a platform of choice these days for most of the types of personas where they live. But I think really it's not just relying on LinkedIn, it's adopting a multi-channel strategy. And so whatever you've got that is relevant for LinkedIn, look at YouTube. Look at, everyone thinks that Facebook isn't relevant to us because it's for kids and it's not grown up, but there's actually ways of using Facebook in a way that it is relevant for the grown up firms.
I've all moved on to TikTok now, Colin.
It's just following the fashion isn't necessarily the way to go. It's just being more analytical about where your target personas live. Do the research. The tools don't necessarily provide the answer. The answer comes in understanding your audience with a little bit more clarity in where they are and what messages they're going to be receptive to and feeding them that. And then the most appropriate channel will become obvious once you've done it. So there isn't a secret place where these guys are hanging out, which is not LinkedIn. It's just a case of using the social channels and the social platforms and the social hideouts to their best advantage in understanding it. So it's just a case of, once upon a time, the world was all about, how big's your database? You go and see somebody and say, how big's your database? Well, it's massive. It's massive. 60,000. But I've met somebody who's got 90,000, so we're going to give them the business. And it's like, yeah, right, whatever. Right? We've got the biggest database in the world now. That's why we don't worry about GDPR. It's like, we've got the biggest database in the world. It's called the internet. They're all out there in different places. You've got to find out. You've got to formulate your strategies to find out where they are and reach out to them. And
Emmy, sorry, Colin.
That's fine. Yeah, it's do your research, figure it out, and then find the right way to get to them.
I absolutely agree with that. We've been asking our team to sort of ask just exactly that question to all the various niches that they have, and ask exactly where these people are hanging out, because particularly in development, LinkedIn might not be the exact space where these developers are hanging out these days. Emmy, you've waved your hand there as well. Give us your thoughts.
Chime in and say to Debbie's point earlier, I think this is when an account-based approach to marketing is probably your best way forward, particularly when you're dealing in a very niche area. So you'll be able to figure out exactly who your decision makers are, what companies they work with. On LinkedIn, you can find them on LinkedIn. And then based on their demographics, based on their age, you can figure out the best channels to try to reach them on. But you can also do, again, you can try to think a little bit differently. In a normal office environment, when people are actually in the office, you can do fun campaigns where you actually, if you do a white paper, you can send the white paper with a handwritten note to their office address. Again, just a little more personal touch that just might make them remember you a bit more. And just thinking about things like that you can do once you have that list of those accounts you want to reach. And of course, when you have that list of accounts, then it's quite easy to analyze how well you're doing. I would say.
Yeah, those sort of brilliant basics and magic touches. I think that personalization, I think, is so critical to that. Debbie, I can see you waving as well. Further thoughts?
Yes, I mean, look, we're having a lot of success on LinkedIn, and I do think that at this time, people are spending more time on social media, particularly on
Absolutely.
LinkedIn. I mean, I think our engagement rate's gone up by about 35%. So I do think LinkedIn is still the social channel du jour that we would look to. but I was going to say, and I think it goes back to where the industry associations can become really helpful and could be very helpful at this time, is to create these sort of industry association networks where we know the peers are coming together, and then help work with people like us, people in the fintech industry that want to have access to their members, and come up with some creative ways in which we can engage with them. I think that is something that we could be spending more time on.
Engagement is such a critical way of doing it, isn't it? It's like a lot of people think about just broadcast and messaging, but the engagement is, particularly LinkedIn, the game changer. There is a follow-up to one of our questions with regards to the data, and it's to you, Emmy, saying what types of tools do you use with regards to pulling data and automating processes?
Good question. One of my first tasks when I joined SteelEye was finding a CRM system, and I knew from previous experience that setting this up, you need to invest time in it. So I use HubSpot, which is very popular, but I find it absolutely brilliant. Now, the reason I use HubSpot is because it has the CRM system capabilities, but it also does your email automation. It integrates with social media. You have your website content management system in one place. So it pulls together all of the data from those channels, and it's just one login. It's integrated with Outlook and all sorts of stuff. So it's our sales tool as well. So HubSpot is what we use.
Fantastic. Any other comments from the rest of the team about other tools that can be of value here? Well,
I was just picking up on what Emmy said there. I mean, we are also a HubSpot shop because that was a tool of choice for us. All I would say is that make a decision. There are other platforms out there that do a similar job. Make a decision, go with it, and then commit and use it properly to its full extent. Because, once again, there is no magic answer. It's just a case of figuring out what your strategy is, finding the right technology, but then use it properly and stick with it and use it effectively. We like that. It works for us, but there are others out there. But just make sure that it's the process and the intent and the use of the output that really matters. All the best tools in the world, but if they're not used, they're not going to have an impact. There's a question I love that's just come in from Ishani. I hope I pronounced that correctly, which says, "What major changes do you expect in marketing strategy post-COVID era for fintechs?" Which I think is a great question. Jared, do you want to give us your thoughts on that?
Or I can certainly say this from experience, but particularly for startups, the emphasis on profitability has ratcheted up so much because you can't count on these big capital infusions coming in during an environment like this. So as you think about strategies, things like using incentives or other techniques that potentially carry a significant cost with them are just being evaluated with a much more rigorous lens. And if you are going to offer an incentive, you want to keep it targeted and to the users where that incentive is really going to be profitable versus, I think even just a year or two ago, you had this idea that, well, we'll spend a lot of money on marketing and we'll kind of figure out the profitability piece down the road once we've built up the user base. And as you've seen with some of the unicorns that have gone public, that strategy has been very problematic. So I think, at least from my perspective, you're seeing a lot more focus on strategies that are implicitly profitable, or at least have a chance of being profitable, versus this idea of just spending a lot of money and then figuring out how to be profitable afterwards.
Rolls into a question which I'm going to ask in a second as well, but I think it's a great question to throw around the rest of the group as well. Major changes in marketing strategy post-COVID. Emmy?
I think what you'll see, going back to the death of the trade show, I think this this period of time will help people realize that trade shows aren't as important as they used to be. And, we get a lot of, I have to go to this conference, we have to sponsor this one, and they're expensive. And this is almost a little bit of ammunition to say, actually, no, we don't. And why don't we, if we can take that spend and put it into digital, we can do so much more with it. So I think that's a change we're going to see. I think that we'll see a less spend on trade shows and events and conferences, and a shift towards much more digital.
That sort of rolls in actually to a question that's just come in from someone shy and an anonymous attendee here saying, because you're able to reach more people via digital channels since lockdown has changed our routines, has this now impacted and reduced the marketing spend or increased it? What are we seeing there?
Shift. I think for us, certainly shift. So we've been able to move reserved budget away from events to other areas.
Yeah. Thank you for answering that. And Debbie, your views on changes in marketing strategy?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, we're taking a zero-based budget approach. So we are taking a clean sheet of paper and we are rethinking about our marketing strategy and where we should be reallocating budget in this new world, because we're working on the basis that this is going to be our new normal. And so I would agree with Emmy, lots of reallocation of budgets, looking at analytics. I mean, we are putting a lot more into social video, doing quite a lot more things around that, and we're seeing a lot more success. So we're certainly sort of angling our budgets more towards that and less in the conferences, trade shows, for sure. Yeah.
Interesting.
I would say the other thing that is working well for us, and I think works. Jared touched on this earlier. Sharing the data and analytics that you have, particularly with other industry participants, can be very valuable. And we as a company have a lot of data and analytics that we share around market commentary about trends and where money is moving markets. And just being able to, we feel that a lot of our clients are really hungry for that kind of information. So we're pushing more data and analytics out to our clients on a more frequent basis, and that seems to be very well received. I would also say that we are hosting a lot more smaller virtual briefings and roundtables, so that we can garner this kind of real-time feedback from clients and be more agile and be able to sort of shift our marketing strategy on the fly.
Be able to respond to that information as well. Mm-hmm. I could be talking about this for days and days and days, and I'm really conscious of the time. So I'm going to if at the risk of running very, very slightly over, I'm going to do a quick fire round now to say if there's one bit of advice, very brief bit of advice that we can share to say this is something which is going to help your marketing strategy. What would that be? I want to start with Colin Slight, punchy, quick fire piece of advice that's going to leave everyone wanting more. What is it, Colin?
Okay, so you've seen a reduction in your need for budgetary provision for these big expensive events, which you're saying has been no longer as effective as they're going to be. Do not take that reduction in budgetary provision and use it as a cost saving. Take that reduction in budgetary provision and reallocate it to the kinds of different strategies that Emmy and Debbie were just talking about.
Superb, thank you very much. Jared, over to you.
Maybe a little cliche, but fortune really favors the bold in this world, and especially as a startup, you're better off taking some big swings and finding something new that works versus trying to make slight optimizations to what you have. And with everyone looking to digital and the marketplace being so crowded, that is really the best strategy, is to just take some risks and try something new.
Not the time to play safe. I love that. Emmy, over to you.
In school, I had an art teacher that told me, good artists borrow, great artists steal. And that's something I think is really interesting. Take inspiration, look at other companies. If you like what they do, Obviously, don't copy it, but constantly learn and look around you what's happening, and that will influence what you're doing.
Absolutely, there's so many great things that are happening out there, and certainly I've got a lot of inspiration from what you guys have been doing as well. And Debbie, last but by no means least, leave us with a gem.
Well, I would say the one thing that I would implore people to do is to do a lot more active listening with clients, and don't assume that your value proposition is relevant right now, because it may not be, and it may have changed. So I think that's the one thing I would recommend people do: more pulse surveys, more active listening. It's just going to pay off in the long term.
Well, there you go. There's a feast of insight for everyone there. More or less on time. I'm very pleased about that. It's been an utter pleasure. Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Emmy. Thank you, Debbie. And thank you, Colin, for joining us today. Thank you all for joining in and logging in and listening to everything I've had to say. We'll be making a recording of this and time to enjoy it again and again and take away all the good value that's come through from it. Thank you all so much. We've had some more events that will be coming up soon. The next issue of the Financial Technologist will be out in the coming weeks as well, which we're very excited about. And then we'll also be looking at the blueprint as the next meeting of the Fintech Influencers. Then it will be the blueprint for Fintech recovery, the Fintech Phoenix, about how we move forward and maximize the next year. Thank you everyone for getting involved, and we'll see you soon at another meeting of the Fintech Influencers. Thanks so much.